To be here or not to be here? That is a daft question, because this is Ignite, so you want to be here. Thank you. Okay. So what we plan to do is we look at what Shakespeare's done in 400 years in inspiring and entertaining us, and we pack that into 90 minutes, okay? No pressure, guys. Okay? So what I can see people are thinking now, looking at me, they're going, where's the other one? Where's Alex? Okay? Well, we've been likened to Ant and Dec in the past, and I think, yeah, you've seen the news. It's not a happy story, and Dec having to go out on his own and the rest of it. I'm a bit concerned about Alex. Someone saw him in the car park. He was getting out of a Mini, and apparently he has been asking if anyone's got any paracetamol, because he's got one hell of a banging head. So a bit concerned about that. So I might have to go solo. So I am hoping he's going to turn up for the Ignite session. Yes! Oh. Thank goodness for that. So just in case anybody has been asleep for the last few years and hasn't been to Ignite, the presenters here, they have 5 minutes to get a message across to you. The slides have been set up so they auto move forward, okay? So once they're going, okay? So we'll get on with this because we've got 12 presenters, so we're going to need to move quite quickly, okay?
Okay, so our first presenter is Craig Hendry. We decided we're going to introduce people based on their LinkedIn profile. So, so we'll be interested to see how amazing these people really are. So, anyway, Craig is he's a regional industrial hygienist from ExxonMobil. He's based in Southampton. He's a graduate of South Bank University. And he got into the HC field around 1999. I think if you look at Craig, you kind of think he would be in primary school in 1999 with a baby face. But Craig's he's bringing back a classic, and he's going to talk to us about the 18.
I'm a bit upset you brought that up, because Robin was offended last night because I look younger than him.
Well, I am, yes, like the old guy between the two baby faces. So.
Actually,
and I'm the youngest. I
actually went on the fun run this morning, and I looked at my Fitbit watch, and I used up 5,000 calories during the run, which is good because I think I drank 5,000 calories. So I'm just going to start. Okay, so this is the A-team, and the question is, do they need competent occupational health advice? Now, they are from Los Angeles, so they fall under the OSHA regulations. And Colonel Decker, who you may recall was an occupational health inspector for OSHA. So are helicopter rescues noisy? The answer is yes. And if you look closely, that's Mad Dog Murdoch with a fishing rod. And I'm not sure you're going to catch many fish up there. Hopefully not. But helicopter rescues are noisy. There's B.A. Baracus doing some routine maintenance activities. As you can see, sorry, my mic fell off. He is welding, burning, grinding, and he's constantly not worried about his metal fume exposure. Lead poison is a big issue for the A-team. High velocity lead exposure is a big issue, and the target organs can range from the brain, the lungs, the kneecaps, the stomach, so very dangerous exposure to lead. Travel health is a big consideration. When BA went on his trips to Africa, he always got his yellow fever injection just before he got knocked out. And then you've got to think about water and food safety. What about drinking water and salad? That's one of the reasons I don't eat any salad. But anyway, a mental health risk assessment for Crazy Mad Murdoch, that actually looks like Alex Wilson and Megan getting ready for the conference centre. Well, that was maybe Megan 10 years ago. Sorry. Ooh, boo yourself. Now, if you've got somebody who comes in, you've got an appointment, and he says it's Crazy Mad Murdoch, do you think he needs a mental health risk assessment? Does he have imaginary friends? Does he talk to himself? Guilty or not guilty? Now, they're in court, an OSHA court, and B.A. Baracus has got handcuffs on. These OSHA inspectors don't mess about. And they're guilty or not guilty? Well, the answer is guilty. He's very angry. And although this is OSHA, I just noticed on the news that Donald Trump signed in the cost regulations into the US. He said it's going to be the smartest regulations ever. And he should know because he's very smart, rich, successful, etc. Case for action. Do they require competent occupational health advice? Fact, no one ever dies on the A-team, ever. In over 20 years, nobody has died. Deaths have occurred. Maybe 30 years, it's been a bit longer than that. However, BA has got flu-like symptoms, including fever, nausea, headaches, and cough. Now, I'm looking around this room, and I think probably most of you get the same symptoms after seeing you in the bar last night. Although I'm not so sure about tequila shots. Ringing in the ears, fever, and diarrhoea. Well, if I had diarrhoea, I don't think I would be publicising it. Although, if you do tell your supervisor you've got diarrhoea, he thinks, well, he's definitely sick, because nobody's ever going to make having diarrhoea up. So they've been blown up, okay. Hearing loss, understandable when face has been blown up buildings in the sub-Sahara and the helicopter rescues, so there is a bit of hearing loss involved with the job as being in the A-team. Pity the fool. So the future, there is BA doing some welding. He's got his LEV, he's got a sampling pump. He certainly let himself go. He's put on a wee bit extra padding. But, you know, at least he's not breathing in toxic metal. Health surveillance. There is Crazy Mad Murdoch getting audiometry and Hannibal getting his lung function. I'm not sure you can have a cigar during your lung function checks. But, you know, it's a progress. You know, they're getting heat stress management. They've just blown up a building somewhere, and now they're thinking about doing a heat stress assessment, which is good. So they're thinking about health as they go, causing mayhem. Discussing travel health. So they've got a secret mission in Africa, and they decide they need yellow fever vaccinations and anti-malarial tablets. And hopefully BA will get it 10 days before he gets knocked out, before he goes on the plane. OEL change management. So there's BA thinking about TLV for manganese. He's going to have to think about it for chromium-6. And I think they announced the new film's going to talk about their OEL change management policy. And I love it when an occupational health plan comes together. And I don't think this mic's working. So. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Craig. I think now, I used to watch the A-Team a lot when I was a kid, used to love it. I think maybe in the back of my mind it was just all those points were going in, and that's maybe what's pushed me in the direction I've gone in my career, maybe. So.
Okay, well, next up we've got Anne O'Donnell. Anne is the owner of HSST. She's based in Montreal, in the Canada area. So it's interesting how Canada's got an area. So I thought that was an interesting thing on LinkedIn. She's a graduate of the University of Newcastle. So I was saying that's the one in the northeast of England rather than any that's why I'm man. And Anne's come with a great thing. So she's gonna take it canine and talk to us about the dog's nose. So take it away.
I'd like to introduce you to Dot. Dot Weimaraner canine. She's received 1,000 hours of training for mold detection. She's in her scrubs, just about to go into the operating room to find hidden mold. The recipe for mold is humidity with organic materials such as cardboard, wood, usually lingering within wall cavities. Humidity lingers within wall cavities, therefore mold can develop and become hidden. The guidelines, essentially, visual inspection is number one. Second of all, hidden mold must be uncovered. Thirdly, air sampling is not reliable because of a variety of temperature, humidity, air movement. I've been using mold detection canines now for more than 12 years. I've worked in schools and hospitals, offices, residences, And my dogs are highly trained in Florida to detect mold. Exactly where the canine alerts is where that blue tab is exactly where there's mold. Behind this green wall, many a consultant has inspected that wall and not have found anything. More than 10 years of air sampling within this school by other consultants, there was no mold detection. We found mold within half an hour, under windows, under floors, within wall cavities. Olivia, right there, my first canine, she received an honorary medal as a working dog. There's been more than 45 articles, I'm very proud, written on our dogs finding mold. The bottom line result is that you're able to map out mold on an architectural drawing, and which includes decontamination instructions. For example, purple, remove the complete wall. This is organic material, of course, and I have to say, the police, airports, use dogs to find hidden narcotics, bombs. They've been using them for quite a while, and they're quite useful. How did this all begin? In '97, that's when I realized that air sampling was not useful for me. 2003, I got myself a Weimaraner puppy, and I sent her off to Florida for training. Several thousands of dollars has been spent to decontaminate this hospital. And I did the quality control inspection and found mold. The hospital said, that is impossible. The next day, they've opened up that wall where the canine alerted. Abundance of mold. From then on, they asked me to carry out my inspection throughout the whole hospital. I receive phone calls and asking if my canines can inspect. What I answer is that I would love my dogs to write my reports. Frequently asked question, is mold hazardous to my canines? Mother Nature has equipped dogs to not inhale the mold. Dogs sniff all kinds of mold and they don't become sick. How about ceilings? Water follows gravity. And exactly where water falls down, well, not exactly, not vis-a-vis, but often you see watermarks. And I'll also take a hole saw, and exactly where the canines alert, I'll go up to the ceiling. How about in court? Well, solid evidence. The mold is there, it's visible, including laboratory analysis proving that it is actual mold. The findings from my mold inspections are usually, or not usually, but can be cracks in foundations, cracks in walls, or leaking pipes under floors. The control would be a French drain with membrane. Imagine, there was a commission named after my dogs. Imagine. Guess what? Humans trust dogs more than humans trust humans. My dogs are friggin' amazing. You know what? They love to run. They love to pull. These dogs love to be with you, the owner. In the autumn and the spring, we'll do bike joring and dog scootering. And as you saw in the winter, it's ski joring. I cannot explain to you how fun this is. It's so much fun. I cannot explain to you how exhilarating. Why use the canine tool? Well, it's a one-step, rapid mold detection and decontamination instruction. In a nutshell, the dog is essential in finding mold.
Thank you for that, Anne. I think that's quite an eye-opener for a lot of people here to see what a dog can do. I wonder where else we can use them for. And do you have to provide any kind of health surveillance programme for them as well?
Can't hear you.
Oh, okay. Okay, don't worry.
It's too much talking. Okay, well, you know, that was fantastic. Next up is Maxine Dolloway. She is the direct sales specialist for UK and Ireland at TSI. She's based in Cardiff. We're on Newport. Graduated from Cardiff. So Maxine's a very clever girl. So she had A's and A stars at GCSE. She has a Bachelor of Science in Genetics and Biology from Cardiff University, and she comes in as the highest follower rate on LinkedIn. 2,186 peeps. So, yeah. So anyway, Maxine is going to talk about fit testing. So take it away.
Bro. My name is Maxine Dolloway. I'm the direct sales specialist at TSI UK. I'm Fit to Fit accredited, and today I'm going to give you a very brief talk on the advantages of face fit testing. And I apologise in advance because I'm cramming a lot into 5 minutes, so I apologise for the very fast Welsh accent. Okay, so I'm going to talk a bit about the basics. The HSE 2828, look at qualitative testing and quantitative testing, and in particular then focus on the advantages of the port account quantitative fit test. So basics, UK HSE there's a requirement for for fit testing of all type fitting respirators under the HSE 28228. And there's two methods that's approved, qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative method, as you can see, bag over the head, spray with a chemical, and then you say whether you can or can't taste it. This method can only be used for half face and disposable masks. It can't be used for full face masks. The quantitative test, using in particular the TSI port account, you can test all masks on the market. It's the only quantitative method that can do this. So you can test masks from all the way up from FFP1 disposables right the way up to full face masks. So if we look in particular at the qualitative method, it's quite a tedious process. You have to do a sensitivity test where the person's exposed to the chemical. They then have to go away and come back and just to test that they are actually sensitive to it. It's prone to errors. There are issues because the person carrying out the fit test has to carry out all the timings themselves using a stopwatch, and they perform the bulb squeezing and calculate how many bulbs they need to be squeezed. It increases the need for operational resources. Often 2 people are needed to perform the fit test. And there are reports where constant bulb squeezing can actually lead to repetitive strain injury over time. It necessitates exposure to unpleasant sensitivity and test solutions. Everyone remarks about this. There are some reactions that have been documented. And there's claustrophobia issues with the hood, bag over the head. You're also prone to deceitful test responses, unfortunately, because you're relying on a person saying whether they can or can't taste the substance. It's a very subjective test. So in opposition to this, you've got the quantitative method, and I'm going to focus on the port account because that's what I sell and I get commission on. So the software walks you through the 7 fit test stages automatically, saving the fit factor for each exercise and automatically calculating the overall fit factors. There's no time and errors associated with the port account method because the software controls it all for you. There's a sample time of 1 minute per exercise, and all your results are documented and stored permanently on a database system. Using the port account, in the UK, we can test up to 2 people at the same time. In the US, this is 4, and you may see this on our website. BSIF have said in the UK, maximum 2 people. So in the port account, there's something that not everyone uses, but I love. It's the real-time mode and enables real-time fit optimization because the gauge indicates whether you've got a poor or good fit, and the cursor changes in real time according to the fit. This aids mask selection because it helps the user identify a poor fitting respirator. The user can then move on and test another mask immediately. This can't be done with the qualitative method, because if you identify a poor mask, poor-fitting mask, that person has to be sent away because they become already sensitized. I love the real-time mode because it trains the wearer how to don the mask correctly. The person being fit tested can see what changes in real time, like tightening the straps, moulding the nose piece, what that has to the fit, and they can replicate this then in the field. Using the portico, you minimise operational resources. One person is only needed for the fit test, and it eases reporting and record keeping because this is all done automatically. In summary, PortAccount advantages. The PortAccount Pro Plus model is the only device that can offer a complete fit testing solution, which means it can test any respirator from an FFP1 right the way up to a self-contained breathing apparatus. Using the PortAccount, you challenge the mask throughout the test with breathing, talking, and movement through all the exercises. And that's something that's outlined in the HSC regulations to do. You directly measure a fit factor throughout the test. And the real-time function is really important because it helps train staff how to get a good fit and how to get that mask fitting you and replicating that in the field. And its automated system. I'm really aware that I've gone through that really quickly. If you want any more information, I've got a poster outside. We're on stand 16. If you want to see a demonstration of the new PortAccount and the new software, please come and say hi. Thank you.
Okay, that was lush. That was awesome. Okay, so next up we've got Professor John Cherry coming in just underneath at 2,032 followers. However, John is associated with about 17,000 universities, so he trumps everybody. So he's a professor at about 17. So yeah, well, LinkedIn says that John did a Bachelor's of Physics in the 70s. I don't think LinkedIn goes before 70s.
No.
So, yeah, but no. So well, John's got a question. What's the point with OELs? So I think this would be a good one. So take it away, John. Thank you.
So I want to challenge you to think critically about something that's really important for occupational hygiene. That's occupational exposure limits. We're all very familiar with the concept. Health risk is monotonically associated with increasing dose or exposure, and if we're lucky, there's a threshold below which there's no risk. However, for some substances, there's no threshold, or the threshold's way below typical exposures. Diesel particulate's a good example where the level where we should set the limit is similar to environmental levels. Problem arises where the limit is where being above the limit is a criminal offence, and we strive towards compliance. Strategies to achieve compliance inevitably focus on reducing exposures for just a few workers, those with the highest exposures. William Yant, the first president of AIHA, warned that mandatory limits are usually minimum requirements, representing the worst conditions. And so OELs practically are often set at levels where most workplaces already comply. Most workers don't benefit from keeping exposure below the OEL. It just helps those with high exposure. But is the absence of a limit not a problem? Is not having an OEL for diesel exhaust particulate benefiting truck drivers or miners? We really should have a system that benefits the whole workforce. Surely this must be the main objective of occupational hygiene, to ensure that everyone benefits from the interventions that we put in place. So what's the point? Actually, you could argue that OELs are pointless, particularly for non-threshold carcinogens. Maybe we should have a different approach to our job and consider getting rid of OELs and getting rid of the concept of compliance. What if we focused on improving working conditions for all workers, doing this through continuous improvement? This philosophy is summed up in the Japanese word kaizen. change for the better. Things are really getting better all the time. These are data from an aerosol exposure measurements showing consistent downward trends in exposure. Over time, there's a consistent reduction of between 5 and 10% each year. This kind of philosophy is not unusual. A new book by Steve Pinker highlights how general societal progress has resulted in better life expectancy, less pollution, more compassionate societies with fewer wars, fewer accidents, and so on. So if things are getting better anyway, why don't we try to reduce exposures for everyone by promoting small step incremental changes, change our attitudes and work collaboratively to find improvements? Why don't we set targets that are a little bit more challenging than we're currently achieving? How about 15% per annum reduction across the board? At that rate, after 10 years, exposures would be down by 80%. So examples exist of this kind of scheme. NEPSI is a social partnership that aims to protect workers through the good handling of crystalline silica. There's extensive practical guidance with requirements for exposure measurements, health surveillance, and all of this is reported back to the trade organisation. The evidence is that following the introduction of NEPSI in Finland, exposures declined more rapidly. Well, declined at least until the financial recession started to bite. So we need data on the effectiveness of the scheme so that we can better understand its importance. So we should adopt Kaizen through new voluntary agreements between social partners. Would this work for diesel particulate? Could we get the truck drivers and the haulage industry to work together? I think it's worth a try. Maybe we need to give everyone a little bit of a helping hand, legislating to nudge social partnerships into existence. We sometimes all need a little encouragement to do the right thing. One thing's for sure, putting our head in the sand and ignoring the problem we have with diesel engine exhaust particulate is not on. Doing nothing will see hundreds of thousands of workers die over the next 50 years from lung cancer. It's really something that requires our attention. We should be setting up a scheme to promote continuous improvements in industries using diesel engines to monitor exposure of workers and publish the results so that everyone can see the progress that's being made. OELs are necessary but not sufficient to protect workers. There are other smarter ways that we could be working to protect health. I encourage you to think about Kaizen. Thank you.
Thank you, John. So next up we've got Richard Topless. Richard is an industrial hygienist at Hawks Associates. He's been involved in industrial hygiene, that's what it says on LinkedIn, for 28 years. 28 years. Richard has an elevated status on LinkedIn. It's like a special platinum because he's from Yorkshire. So it's only something that I can see on my app because I'm also from Yorkshire. So Richard's going to do an Ignite on, it's up on the screen already. Transferring knowledge, and it's something that he's been doing a lot of hard work on over the last few years. So thank you, Richard.
Thank you. Yeah, just based on the fact that in the UK we've got 32 million workers, and how many occupational hygienists do we have? Well, most of the good ones are here today, so we're fairly thin on the ground. So what we really need to do is transfer our expert knowledge as much as we can. And I want to base it on my experiences working in Iraq in the Rumaila oil field over the last few years. Where the arrow is, that's where I live when I'm out there for my 2 or 3 weeks at a time. It's a big oil field, 80 kilometres, 20 kilometres wide, sandwiched there in between Kuwait and Iran. I could talk to you about the Iraq war and how it's related, but I better not get involved in that. As you can see, there's all sorts of issues that need to be sorted out, but occupational hygiene isn't a recognised profession in Iraq. the state oil company that we're working with out there, they have a fire and safety department, they have an environmental department. Occupational health, occupational hygiene isn't on the radar, or wasn't on the radar, it is now. So the knowledge of the workforce in general, when we started working in 2010, 2011 in Iraq, very little knowledge of even basic health risks. Talk about asbestos, they didn't realise that there was any health risk from asbestos, good for making roofs out of and things like that. So we realised that we needed to use Wendy Parker's saying, we've got to get them from zero to hero as quickly as possible. We've got to get occupational hygienists trained, and we've got to do it now. We can't hang around. So the way went about this was we started by running the basic principles of occupational hygiene course. We'd select the good students from that course, and we selected 4 guys actually, that were really good on the course, and set them up as trainee IHs. Their main job was to get out there with the workforce and deliver health risk awareness training, tell people what presents a health risk and what they can do to control it. They're also doing things like site surveys, inspections, routine measurements. The good thing there is that these guys that knew nothing really when we started in 2011 and 12 are gaining really valuable experience. We need them to become certified occupational hygienists. One of the main reasons for that is in the oil and gas industry, like in lots of industries, people like a piece of paper. They need to see some expertise, some recognition of the expertise. So we had to get them through the Certificate of Occupational Hygiene. Started off with the intermediate modules. We'd like to train them in the UK so they get good experience in the UK, get to see some other work sites as well. That didn't work. There wasn't enough money. The Iraqi government didn't want to send people out of country because they might not come back. So we ended up running the modules in Iraq. That had advantages. We could make all the practicals very relevant to the workplace. Disadvantages, this was the only LEV system that we could find when we were doing the control module. One system in one lab in a 8,000 employee oil field. They also had to put together the personal learning portfolios. This was complicated by the fact that the presence of an IH there was a bit on and off for various reasons. And then they had to pass the oral exam, which I'm sure this is a familiar feeling for lots of people. Particularly difficult when your first language is Arabic. One of the biggest challenges is the guys working out there have got very little knowledge of what good looks like, or of any sort of workplace other than a minefield or the oil field. So getting them to write reports to PLP standards was a real challenge, and it's not something that's worthwhile for them to do in their day-to-day working life because there's too much else to get after rather than writing big, long, detailed reports. It's getting there and do things quickly to raise the level of awareness. But we've now got a nationalised industrial hygiene team. We've got 3 guys, 2 have passed the certificate, one's he's got to pass his oral exam. And I'm really confident that these guys are actively reducing health risk in their day-to-day work. Every day they go to work, they're helping to reduce health risks at work. So I'm really grateful that I've had the opportunity to pass on some of my knowledge and expertise that I've gained over the best part of 30 years. And I'd just like to urge you all to think in every day of your working life, can you try and pass on some of that knowledge and get more occupational hygiene knowledge out there and get people doing the business. Thank you.
That was a great story, really good story. Next up we've got Jonathan Whittam. So he's a product specialist sales manager at Shaw City. Very new to LinkedIn because Jonathan's only got 154 followers. So,
I'm edgy.
Oh, yeah. You need to up
It's
your game,
quality,
mate.
isn't it?
So Jonathan's got a Masters of Engineering from Manchester University, so he's a Menger. He graduated in 2016. So, but it's a good degree. And looking at your career history, you've done well in a short space of time, going from customer assistant at View Cinema all the way up to the heights of specialist sales manager at Shaw City. So that's fantastic. So Jonathan's going to give us a talk about evolution of humankind. So take it away.
You said it's a red button, yeah? The big red button.
The ejector.
I wish. So yeah, I wasn't actually expected to be introduced, and that's what I had allocated for the first 7 seconds. But I'm going to talk to you about the importance of bump testing and how this can help to ensure the continued evolution of humankind. So
just press the next one on, and then it'll kick on. There you go.
Okay.
That's it now.
So this was actually meant to be my first slide, and this was the one that I was going to introduce myself on. So now I am going to speak to you about the importance of bump testing and how this can ensure the continued evolution of humankind. So human evolution, or survival of the fittest, this is helped by our ability to assess and avoid threats or dangers in order to ensure our own survival. Now, in today's world, some dangers are actually really obvious and easy to avoid, such as air pollution, smog, warning signs, or fast-moving traffic. However, other dangers are not so easy to avoid. Some can be deceptive, invisible, silent, or odorless. And the detection may not be actually aware to you until it's too late. Much like the snake on the board, the camouflage, if that attacks, you're not going to know about it until you're fully injected with venom, and also the shark as well, which is completely invisible. And just like those dangers, gas as well can be easily detectable. So a leak from a high-pressure pipe may cause a hissing sound, or the smell from a gas cooker. But much like the invisible man, some are not easily detectable and some are invisible. And for this, a gas detector is required. Now, gas detection technology today offers much better protection than ever before, with real-time instruments giving you an instantaneous reading and alarm in the event of any danger. However, even with regular calibration and servicing following manufacturer's instructions, nothing is infallible. And here's why your car is a good example. So you take your car in to a servicing and regular MOT. However, these are only annual checks, and through everyday use, something could happen to the car which could make it unsuitable for driving, such as a puncture in the tyre or a crack in the windscreen. Now, ATEX, IEC and HSE standards all call for bump testing and calibration of any portable instrument used for worker health and safety protection in a potentially hazardous environment. So what actually is a bump test? So this is a quick test to ensure that the sensors and the alarms all function as intended when exposed to the target gas. So why do you actually need to bump test? Well as the standards telling you have to, if you were going to use a portable gas detection instrument in a hazardous environment and you was going to use that to save your life, wouldn't you want to prove that it works? So this is a picture of a first-generation detector. And as you can see, it's pretty obvious to see when a yellow canary isn't working or is dead. So, and this is my representation of a next-gen detector. But obviously in real life, it doesn't look like that. And it's difficult to tell whether it is actually reading. And and a sensor reading 0 doesn't necessarily mean that it's working. So much like the car in the example, real-time gas detectors can actually be affected through environmental and daily use and can be degraded due to temperature, humidity and rainwater and much other things. So you may be thinking, how long does it take to perform a bump test? You know, if you've got to take it every day, it's going to take up a lot of your time. But as you can see from the video demonstrated there, it really doesn't take that much time at all. In fact, in the time that it takes me to finish this sentence, you could have fully performed a bump test on your instrument to ensure your own worker safety. So, to ensure the continued evolution of mankind and be able to assess threats and to ensure your own worker safety and just to make sure that you actually make it home at the end of a hazardous working shift, please always remember to push the bump and not your luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Up next, we've got Amanda Parker, fellow board member of the BOHS. Because I know Amanda quite well now, she's a no-nonsense individual, hence why she doesn't have a profile picture. She's hardly got any connections on LinkedIn, and it's Amanda Parker Ineos. So there you go. Well, also the other secret there is that she doesn't sound like it, but she's also from Yorkshire. So there's quite a few special people on this stage today. Anyway, Amanda, you take it away. We've got a lot of fit-related topics today.
Is this mic working? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I didn't realise we had to do a Shakespeare-themed part to this, but I think I can just about appreciate that just now. So I could do, alas, poor Yorick, I knew him, Horatio. That was not a bit. I've pressed the red button.
Have you?
Yes.
I'll try again.
Oh.
Oh, should it be the green one?
Green one.
Green one.
You said red.
Green for go.
Okay. So this is now an interactive Ignite session, okay? Who loves respirators? Come on, give me a whoop whoop. Yay, fantastic. We all love respirators, don't we? No, not really, okay. So this is a very sad respirator here, because this respirator realizes that it's at the bottom of the hierarchy of control, and it's feeling very unloved and very, very sad. Poor, sad. Let's hear it all for the respirator. Thank you very much. But I have noticed something about every person I meet, even workers, they actually all have to breathe, and they have to keep doing that repeatedly. And actually, many of our hazards that we have are inhalation hazards. In fact, most of our hazards tend to be inhalation hazards. And many of these inhalation hazards are really, really nasty. I've also noticed that as well. There's some really nasty stuff out there, and we've probably talked about some of it during this week. So we end up in this situation where we're using the lowest possible level of control very often for the highest type of hazard, which I have labelled very scientifically the red box of doom. But we end up at, hands up, who's in that situation a lot of the time? Okay, sorry, next slide. So, but tight-fitting respirators, you all know that they rely entirely on a good seal against the face. And that's obviously wrong, because that's actually a walrus, okay? There we go. Now, that's a good seal against the face. But they rely entirely on a good seal. If you don't have a good seal, you haven't got less protection. You've got no protection at all if you haven't got that good seal against the face. So, if we're relying on it to protect against really nasty stuff, how do we know that it's working? How do you know day to day that that's actually working when you give somebody a respirator? Well, of course, there's face fit testing, and we've heard about that. And have you ever seen anybody so pleased to get a face fit test? He's absolutely delighted. And that tells you that the person can get a good seal with that mask. But how do you know that every single time they wear it, they actually have a good seal and that they maintain it throughout the time that they're working. Sometimes people work quite hard. I've noticed that as well. A face fit test on a Tuesday tells you nothing about how well they're wearing it on a Thursday. So hands up if you ever wear a tight-fitting respirator with eyewear at the same time. Come on, people. Yeah, okay. Keep your hands up if ever your eyewear steams up. Of course it does, okay? So you end up with that. Why does that happen? Why does eyewear sometimes steam up when you have a tight-fitting half mask? Yeah, it's not fitting properly. So what's effectively happening is that warm, moist air is escaping around the seal. Okay, and where we see an example of warm, moist air escaping around the seal. So what I say to people when I'm talking to them about this at work is that they actually have two choices at this point if that's happening. The first choice is they could just take the mask off and throw it away, because it's not much fun anyway, and it's giving them absolutely no protection whatsoever if it's not actually sealing around the face. Or they do have another option, that they could actually check the fit of their mask when they put it on, every time they put it on. Now, every mask comes with instructions on how to actually do that, user self-wear test, whatever we want to call it. And there are obviously lots of different ways that you can do that, and it is really important to read the instructions with the individual masks, because they all have a different way of actually checking that it's actually fitting when you put it on. So I've got some highly scientific research here, which I may submit to the annals. And when I speak to people, about 90% of them know about face fit testing. About 50% of them know or comply with a clean-shaven policy in general. And only about 5% of them understand about actually checking it every single time they use it. So if we're going to use the bottom of the hierarchy of control to protect against some really significant hazards, we absolutely have to remember that protection relies entirely on achieving and maintaining a good face seal. So we have to train people to remind them always to check the face seal. And then we can all be superheroes, even if we're surrounded by strange pink gas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amanda. I love the seal pictures, or walrus pictures.